Hello everyone, today I wanted to show you how you can deploy your local applications to a remote server. We'll be using GitHub Actions and self-hosted runners for this. This will allow us even to deploy private repositories. This is a convenient solution since you're probably already using Git and GitHub, so GitHub Actions and self-hosted runners is a nice addition to your workflow, which are also free to use. So GitHub self-hosted runner is basically like an agent that you install on your server, which will allow the communication between that server and your GitHub repo. Additionally, we'll create a workflow that will allow this runner to access our repository directly on the remote server. Next, that runner will be able to execute various commands as you will see. Now for the prerequisites. You need to have a GitHub account and an SSH connection to that GitHub account. So I have a link here that goes over how you can create the SSH connection, which is from the official GitHub documentation and it is easy to follow. Next, you'll need a remote server where we will deploy our local application. For this, I have a link to Vultr. It is easy to use and the pricing is clear, and using this link will give you 300 credit to test out Vultr. So let's start with the prerequisite. I'm going to deploy a new server on Vultr. I'm gonna click on shared CPU. I'm gonna pick Frankfurt. Next, I'm going to pick a single CPU and single RAM. I'm going to disable backups, and for the operating system I'm gonna pick Ubuntu 24 and I'm going to deploy this. Alright, so our server has been deployed. Let's SSH it using SSH root at IP address, password, and we're in. So the first thing I'm going to do is create a new user and I'm going to call it GitHub. Password. Next, we'll need to give this user sudo access. So type vsudo, go to the bottom where you'll find root. Here, put the new user, GitHub, and copy and paste the root privileges. Now we can switch to that user using su GitHub. cd, go into its directory. Let's go back to our article. Now I have a link here on how to set up the self-hosted runner. First, let's create a new repository. I'm going to call it tutorial and I'm going to set this repository to private. Create repository. Next, I'm going to go to settings. I'm going to click on actions and I'm going to click on runners. Here, I'm going to click on new self-hosted runner. Make sure you pick the correct operating system. In our case, it is Linux. Next, all we have to do is copy and paste these commands, which will create the necessary directories and download the runner files. Now we're authenticating with GitHub. Enter the name of the runner group. I'm gonna keep it default. Next, the runner name, I'm gonna keep it default as well, and everything else I'm gonna keep it as default. That's clear. Now the next command will run the runner, but this will make our session unusable. So it's better to create a service for our runner so it's running in the background. Back to the article, there is a second link which tells you how to do so. All we have to do is run this command, then start the service. So as you can see, the self-hosted runner right now is running in the background as a service. And if I go back to the repository and click on runners, we can see that the runner is actually online and is idle. Let's install a web server so we can deploy our application. So I'm going to install Nginx, but you could do also with Apache. And I'm going to check UFW. And we need to allow HTTP. We can do that using sudo UFW allow HTTP and sudo UFW allow HTTPS if we decide in the future to install SSL certificate. So now if we actually visit the IP address, we should see an Nginx page, and here it is. So this Nginx page is located in var www html, which is right here. So we'll create a deployment pipeline that will deploy our local application to this directory. For this to work properly, we need to change the ownership of this directory. So I'm gonna go back and I'm going to change ownership to GitHub, our user, GitHub, and the HTML directory. Then inside the HTML directory, I'm going to remove everything. Now let's create a simple local application that we will use to deploy. I'm going to be using Tooplate. It has a nice ready templates using just HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. I'm going to download this template and then I'm going to copy it and paste it in the tutorial directory on my local machine. I'm going to extract everything and I'm going to copy its contents and paste them in the tutorial directory, and I'm going to remove the unnecessary folders. That's the same directory as this one. As you can see, here is the template. Now I'm going to initiate git here And let's go back to our article to set up the workflow. So this is the GitHub workflow structure. We'll create a GitHub directory and inside it workflows. And inside that, we are going to create deploy.yml file. Now let's paste the following contents here. I'm going to remove these red lines. And let's break it down. So we'll be using the main branch, and the deployment process will be using the self-hosted runner. The checkout step will make our repository available directly on the remote server. So on the remote server, when we will be using the git command, we're actually using it on our repository. The git archive will create an archive of our repository without the .git folder, which is perfect for our remote server because we don't want our application to include any git files. It will store that archive in the temp folder with the following name. Next, we are going to modify the commands. So we are going to cd where our web application files are located, and that is under var www.html. Next, I'm going to delete this directive because we don't need to create any directory. The next command will delete all the files in the HTML folder, which is good for cleaning out this directory before deploying our files. The next command is going to extract our repository, and then we will remove the archived file inside the temp folder. This should do it. Let's save this and let's create a couple of additional files. One of them is .gitattributes. This will exclude additional files in our deployment, such as the GitHub directory and .gitignore files, as we don't need this on our server. This will ignore them specifically when using git archive command. So all these files will get deployed to our GitHub repository, but not our server. Let's save this, and with this we are almost ready. Let's add origin for our remote repo. I'm gonna go to the repository and copy the HTTPS URL, enter, and now let's git add everything and let's commit this repository. I'm gonna say initial Tooplate template, and let's push this, git push origin and the main branch. And now on our repository, let's go to actions, and we can see that there is an action in progress, and we can see that it was successful and it only took 7 seconds. Let's refresh the Nginx page, and we can see that it has deployed our application. To see how fast the deployment process is, let's download a new template and deploy it. I'm gonna go with this Nexus Brew, download it, I'm gonna copy it, go to my directory. I'm going to delete everything here except the GitHub and Git attributes. I'm going to extract the new template. I'm gonna copy its contents, paste them, and delete the unnecessary files, and let's deploy this. Here is our previous template, echo loom. Now I'm going to git add dot git commit with the message new template deployed. Now git push origin main. Let's give it 10 seconds and refresh the page. Pushed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Let's refresh the page, and we can see that the new template has been deployed. Now at the bottom of my article, there is another section which explains how you can create a server specific for the self-hosted runner. So instead of installing the self-hosted runner on the same server where your application is, you would install it on a different server, and then that server would deploy it to your application server. This will involve creating an SSH access between the deployment server and your application server. And that's it with this tutorial. Deployment pipelines might look intimidating at first. I hope this made you understand how the deployment pipelines work and that they are not as hard as they might seem initially. Thank you for watching, and take care.